Sandy Brondello isn't just another coach in the WNBA. She's a cornerstone of the league's coaching legacy, a tactical mastermind, a player's coach, and, most importantly, a proven winner. She's guided teams to championships. She's weathered roster rebuilds and playoff pressure. She's led stars and developed rookies. Wherever she's gone, she's made the team better, more cohesive, more dangerous. And just last season, she did the unthinkable, turned the New York Liberty into a championship team. That was supposed to be the beginning of a dynasty.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The Liberty were no longer a could-be team. They were the team, anchored by talent, driven by defense, and helmed by one of the most respected minds in the game. Brondello had made it all click. She'd found a rhythm. And then boom, she's fired. No build-up, no scandal, no collapse. Just gone. And let's be honest, fans weren't just shocked. They were confused. How do you go from hoisting a trophy to packing your office less than a year later? The official story? Performance-based. But come on, we've seen enough league drama to know the PR line when we hear one. That explanation didn't just smell fishy, it reeked of damage control. Because the real reason? It wasn't a losing streak. It wasn't locker room friction. It wasn't a failure to adapt. It was a compliment. Sandy Brondello stood in front of Mike and did what any respectful, self-assured coach should do. She gave props to another player. And not just any player, Caitlin Clark. She acknowledged Clark's impact. She praised her game. She said, in so many words, that Clark was good for the league. And apparently, that was the moment the clock started ticking on her job. Let that sink in. A coach who just led her team to a title was let go, not for failure, but for praise. Because in the current WNBA climate, saying the wrong nice thing about the wrong rising star can suddenly make you disloyal. Welcome to the politics of pro women's basketball in 2025, where the locker room isn't the only battlefield. It's also the press conference. Now, look, this isn't about pretending Caitlin Clark is beyond critique. She's human. She's learning. She's navigating a league that, quite frankly, has never seen anything like her. The good, the bad, the pressure, the controversy, it's all part of the story. But when the simple act of acknowledging her talent is treated like a betrayal, that's a problem. A big one. Because it signals that the league's not just uncomfortable with Clark's popularity, it's threatened by it. Instead of embracing her rise and using it to elevate everyone, the league seems determined to manage her ascent, to control the narrative, to make sure that if she's going to be praised, it comes from the right people at the right time for the right reasons. And Sandy Brondello, she didn't get the memo. She spoke from experience, from respect, from basketball knowledge. And she got punished for it. The message to other coaches is loud and clear. Fall in line or fall on the sword. And if you're a fan of any team in this league, that should terrify you. Because this league is finally breaking through into mainstream relevance. Viewership is up. Merch is flying. The games are exciting. People are talking. And yet, instead of doubling down on that momentum, the league is getting in its own way. Playing politics with praise. Undermining credibility to protect fragile power dynamics. Let's talk about the power dynamic, actually, because that's what this is really about. There are factions in this league. Quiet alliances, star favoritism, unspoken rules about who gets the spotlight. And Caitlin Clark? She doesn't fit neatly into any one group. She's too popular for the league to ignore, but too uncontrollable for them to fully endorse. So what do? They walk a tightrope. Promote her just enough to keep the casual fans happy, but tamper down enough to avoid upsetting the existing pecking order. That's why Brondello's comments were such a problem. They blew up the balancing act. She wasn't just praising Clark. She was validating her, giving her legitimacy. And that legitimacy made her rise harder to suppress. So the league made an example out of Sandy. Not for what she did wrong, but for what she said right. And the cost. Trust. Transparency. Coaching stability. Let's not gloss over that last one. Because if a championship-winning coach isn't safe, who is? What incentive is there to speak honestly? to advocate for the future of the sport, to foster goodwill across teams and fan bases? Apparently, none. It creates a chilling effect. Coaches play it safe. Players keep their heads down. Everyone toes the line because one quote, one tweet, one moment of realness could be your last. That's not a league growing. That's a league afraid of growth. And it's a shame because the opportunity is right there. The talent? Incredible. The fans? More engaged than ever. The storylines? Practically writing themselves. But instead of letting the game shine, the league is still trying to script the outcome. Still trying to curate which players deserve praise and when. And here's the irony. Caitlin Clark doesn't need their protection. She doesn't need to be babied, shielded, or tiptoed around. She needs the same thing every rising star needs. The freedom to be recognized when it's deserved, the space to grow when mistakes are made, and the respect of her peers and coaches. And Sandy Brondello gave her that respect. Pure and simple. She saw a young player lighting it up and said, "That's good for all of us." Not, "She's better." Not, "She's perfect." Just, "She's helping the league." And for that, she's unemployed. It's petty. It's political. And it's a masterclass in how to squander momentum. Because if the league can't even allow its own coaches to praise a player who's literally growing their bottom line, then what hope is there for real, authentic growth? The league says it wants to expand. It wants more TV deals, bigger attendance, higher salaries, global recognition. But here's the thing. You can't build a global brand if you're still scared of your own stars. You can't attract the next generation of fans if you're silencing the voices who make the game worth watching. And you definitely can't fire your way out of insecurity. So where does Sandy Brondello go from here? Anywhere she wants, honestly. NBA? She has the resume. Expansion franchise? She has the blueprint. International gig? She's got options. She'll land on her feet because she's respected, because she wins, because she leads. And that's the ultimate twist here. The league tried to make her a warning, but instead, they made her a martyr, a symbol of how broken things still are and how much further we have to go. And the fans? They're watching. They're louder. They're sharper. They're not falling for the sanitized press releases. They see what's happening. They see what was done to Sandy, and they'll remember. So what do you think? Was Sandy Brondello really fired for performance? Or was it because she dared to speak the truth? Is the WNBA embracing growth or running from it? Leave a comment, hit subscribe, and stay tuned, because this isn't just a coaching change. It's a test for the league, for the players, for all of us. And the final score? Still very much undecided. Let's talk about timing. Sandy Brondello didn't just get fired after a bad week or a rough playoff run. She was dismissed less than a year after guiding the Liberty to their first ever championship. In the sports world, that's like winning an Oscar and getting kicked out of the studio before the afterparty ends. And let's be honest, if she had made headlines for criticizing Caitlin Clark, for dismissing her impact, for throwing subtle shade like others have, she'd probably still have a job. But instead, Sandy did something radical. She told the truth. She acknowledged that Clark wasn't just another rookie. She said what thousands of fans, commentators, and other players have been saying for months now. Caitlin Clark is changing the game. And that made people nervous. Why? Because in the WNBA, change doesn't come easy. For years, the league has operated under this carefully crafted system of spotlight rotation, where only certain players are allowed to be the face of the league. There's this tight grip on who gets marketed, who gets mic'd up, who gets forgiven, and who gets praised. And Caitlin Clark? She bulldozed that system in under a year. She walked into the league with a media frenzy bigger than most MVPs. And instead of slowing down, she delivered on ratings, on ticket sales, on buzz. Even her haters can't stop talking about her. So what does that mean for the league? It should be a dream come true, right? A rising star with undeniable numbers, crossover appeal, and fans lining up around the block. Except, here's where things get complicated. Clark didn't rise through their system. She didn't pay her dues in the way some players and execs think you're supposed to. And more importantly, she didn't ask for permission. She just became the most talked about player in the league. And when Sandy Brondello, an established coach with titles, pedigree, and respect, chose to publicly support her. It exposed the league's uncomfortable reality. They don't know how to handle organic stardom that they didn't manufacture. And rather than adjust to that, they decided to silence it. Sandy's firing isn't just about control, it's about fear. The fear of what happens when the narrative escapes the league's hands. When a player becomes too big to fit into the league's preferred storyline. When praise isn't approved in advance. It's a dangerous game, and it's one the league is losing. Because if you start punishing coaches for telling the truth, for uplifting the next generation, for being excited about the league's growth, you're not protecting your brand. You're shrinking it. What message does this send to current coaches? To assistant coaches hoping for a promotion? To former players thinking of stepping into leadership roles? It says, keep your head down. Don't say too much. Don't rock the boat. And definitely don't praise the wrong star. That's not leadership. That's authoritarianism in sneakers. And the worst part? It's so unnecessary. There's room in this league for all kinds of stars. For veterans and rookies. For heroes and villains. For dynamic scorers and defensive anchors. And yes, for legends like Sandy Brondello and rising names like Caitlin Clark. This doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. But the league is treating it like one. They're so busy trying to protect certain narratives that they're missing the massive cultural moment happening right in front of them. People are watching. New fans are coming. The league is finally trending for all the right reasons. And what does the league do? They fire the one coach who had the courage to say, "This is good for us." Let's talk legacy for a second. Sandy Brondello has been in women's basketball forever. As a player, she was gritty, smart, and relentless. As a coach, she's known for her discipline, her adaptability, and her ability to bring the best out of her players. She's respected, not just because she wins, but because she gets it. She understands how to manage personalities, how to coach under pressure, how to stay level-headed in a league that is constantly evolving. And she saw in Caitlin Clark what we all see, a player who brings eyes to the sport, who gets casual fans to care, who sells out arenas in cities that don't even have a WNBA team yet. And Sandy said, let's embrace this. She saw potential, opportunity, growth, but the league saw a threat. And now she's out of job because she told the truth too soon, too loudly. But guess what? This isn't going away. Fans are asking questions. Players are side-eyeing press conferences. Other coaches are suddenly very careful with their post-game interviews. And the media? Oh, they've caught on. Because this wasn't just a firing. It was a warning shot, and everyone in the league heard it. So the WNBA has a choice. It can keep trying to suppress the wave. Keep playing narrative gatekeeper. Keep treating praise like a liability. Or it can finally let the game breathe. Let the stories be real. Let the coaches speak freely. Let the players grow without fear of stepping on the wrong toes. Because if the goal is actual growth, then it has to include authenticity. You can't ask fans to invest in the game if the people inside it aren't allowed to speak their truth. And you definitely can't ask players to give everything on the court if you're going to punish their coaches for doing the same thing off the court. So here we are. Sandy Brondello, one of the winningest coaches in league history, is gone. Why? Because she praised a player. Not for off-court behavior, not for a viral moment, not for a political statement, but for basketball. That's what makes this so absurd. She was fired for liking the game, for celebrating someone who's making it better, for being honest. And that honesty, it made her expendable. So now, the ball's in the league's court. Do they double down and pretend this was performance-based? Or do they finally admit what everyone already knows? That they're scared of change. Scared of losing control. Scared of letting the players and coaches shape the story instead of the execs. If they choose the first option, they'll keep bleeding trust. One coach at a time. One fan at a time. One moment at a time. But if they choose the second, if they take this moment and learn from it, then maybe, just maybe, they can salvage what's left of this season's momentum. They can remind the world that women's basketball isn't about censorship. It's about competition. Courage, community, and the first step, reckoning with what they did to Sandy Brondello. Let's zoom out for a second and really sit with what this says about the culture of the league right now. The WNBA is growing fast. Expansion is on the table. Ratings are up. Merchandise is flying. Players like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Aaliyah Boston are becoming household names. Women's basketball is finally getting the shine it deserves. This should be a golden era, a moment of celebration. And yet, behind the scenes, the league feels fragile, guarded, almost paranoid. Because instead of leaning into the momentum, it feels like the people in charge are terrified of losing control of the narrative. It's as if the league said, yes, we want growth, but only if it looks exactly how we imagined it. And Caitlin Clark? She broke that mold. She came in with a tidal wave of attention. Not because the league built her up, but because the world did. Because fans showed up. Because broadcasters couldn't stop talking about her. Because she brought eyes to the game that had never been there before. That should have been a win for everyone. But the league didn't script her rise. They didn't get to decide when or how it happened. And so instead of embracing the opportunity, they tried to contain it. Cue Sandy Brondello, a respected coach, a team leader, a champion, someone who's been through the trenches and knows the league inside and out. When she praised Clark, it wasn't random. It wasn't clout chasing. It was strategic insight. It was recognition of a shift that could benefit the entire ecosystem of women's basketball. But instead of taking that as a cue to evolve, the league treated it like betrayal. That's the part that sticks, because it tells every other coach in the league, you're not just managing players, you're managing politics. Forget development. Forget game plans. You better know who you're allowed to praise and when. And let's not pretend this doesn't have ripple effects. Players see this too. The stars, the rookies, the benchwarmers. They're watching how the league handles those who speak out. They saw how it punished Shindy Carter for a hard foul and then protected others for worse. They saw how Angel Reese gets called too emotional while others get labeled competitive. They've seen the double standards. And now, they've seen what happens when a coach backs the wrong narrative. So what happens next? Do coaches stay silent when they admire another team's player? Do they avoid media altogether? Do they default to generic answers to keep their jobs? Because if so, we all lose. We lose the personalities that make this league special. We lose the candor that keeps fans invested. We lose the soul of the sport. And honestly, the league can't afford that right now. Not when the spotlight is finally this bright. Not when new fans are tuning in, looking for connection, for authenticity, for drama that's real, not PR engineered. If anything, this should have been the time to encourage more coaches to speak up, to foster rivalries, to create storylines that go beyond the box score. But firing Sandy Brondello, that was the opposite of encouragement. That was a silencing. And you can dress it up however you want, performance-based, mutual parting of ways, directional change, but fans know better. This was a purge, a clean break, a message to the next person in line. Stay in the system or find your way out. Let's be clear, Sandy will be fine. She has the resume. She has the respect. She could go coach an NBA bench next week if she wanted, or take over an expansion team and build something even bigger. Her career is not over. It's just entering a new chapter. But the league? The league now has a hole it can't plug with press releases. Because you don't just replace someone like Brondello. You don't erase her impact with a new hire and a cheerful social media post. You can't manufacture the trust she had with players, the presence she brought to interviews, the way she made her teams feel like actual teams, not just collections of talent. And worst of all, the league has made it very clear that values like honesty, respect, and big-picture thinking are now considered liabilities. You want a job? Play nice. Stick to the script. Don't rock the boat, even if the boat is sinking. But here's what the league didn't count on. Fans aren't dumb. They see what's happening. They saw Sandy win a title. They saw her be respectful, measured, professional, and still get tossed aside. And they're asking the right questions. Why now? Why her? Why this reason? And if the league won't answer honestly, the fans will come up with answers on their own. That's how mistrust starts. That's how movements begin. And let's be real, this league has a history of silencing the very voices that made it relevant. Remember when outspoken players led the way on social justice, and the league acted like it was their idea all along? Remember when criticism of officiating suddenly became a finable offense? Remember how the league still hasn't figured out how to market its stars without playing favorites? It's all connected. Sandy Brondello isn't the first casualty of this culture, and she won't be the last. But maybe she'll be the one who makes fans finally say, enough. Enough with the politics. Enough with the fear. Enough with punishing the people who care too much, speak too honestly, and believe too deeply in the game. Because that's what this is really about. Sandy Brondello believed in Caitlin Clark, not as a media product, not as a threat to her own team, but as a symbol of what this league could become. She didn't see her as competition. She saw her as momentum. And for that, she was fired. So now the question becomes, who's next? Which coach, player, analyst, or executive is going to speak out and pay the price? And when they do, will the league listen? Or will it keep choosing control over culture, silence over growth, and protectionism over progress? We're at a crossroads, and what happens next will determine whether this league steps into the future or clings to the past. The WNBA says it wants to grow. Great. Here's your chance. Start by acknowledging your mistakes. Bring Sandy Brondello back into the conversation. Apologize, publicly or privately, for how this was handled. Let coaches speak honestly. Let players be themselves. Let stars like Caitlin Clark rise and be recognized without fear of political fallout. Because if this league is really going to reach the next level, it has to start trusting the people who are already taking it there. We're watching a league try to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and it's not working. Because here's the kicker. When you fire a coach like Sandy Brondello for simply recognizing a player's greatness, you don't just spark outrage. You trigger doubt. You stir the pot in a way that doesn't just affect headlines. It infects locker rooms, coaching staffs, front offices, and fan bases. It tells everyone, speak too freely and you're next. You can't run a professional sports league like that. Not one trying to be taken seriously on the world stage. Not one desperate for the sponsorship dollars, the primetime slots, the expansion teams. Not one begging fans to believe that this is the future of basketball. You want fans to buy in? To keep showing up, tweeting, wearing jerseys, and defending the league like it's family? Then you have to let the league be real. Real conflict. Real personalities. Real support between rivals. Real praise where it's due. Because the truth is, and everyone knows this, Caitlin Clark has breathed new life into the WNBA. You don't have to love her game. You don't have to agree with all the hype. But you cannot deny the numbers, the reach, the impact. And yet, the league keeps treating her name like a landmine, something you mention at your own risk. Imagine that. A once-in-a-generation star shows up, and everyone's walking on eggshells. Except Sandy Brondello didn't. She saw what was happening. She saw the potential. She saw how Clark could lift every team, including her own. And she had the nerve to say it out loud. Not to shade her own players. Not to kiss up to the league. But because she loves the game. She loves this league. And she wants to see it grow beyond the petty politics that have held it back for too long. For that, she was shown the door. But make no mistake, she didn't leave empty-handed. She left with her integrity, her respect, her voice. And now, that voice is louder than ever. You can't fire that away. You can't PR spin it into oblivion. You can't cancel the truth. So yeah, this isn't just about Sandy. It's about the future of the WNBA. About whether it's going to grow into the powerhouse it could be, or shrink into something fans no longer recognize. And the fans? They're watching, closer than ever. So WNBA, what's the next move? Because you've made yours. Now the people are responding, and they're not backing down. If you're with us, speak up. Drop your take in the comments. Was Sandy Brondello a casualty of politics, or the cost of telling the truth? Subscribe for more deep dives into the beautiful chaos of women's basketball. Because around here, we don't play it safe.